2021 is already loaded up with brand new game shows and game show revivals. Let's talk TV. Hey everybody, Dan here, and this is Dan Reviews It, and TV news and reviews for the week, our very first show of 2021. I mean, I did the best of 2020 a few days ago, but this is our first show of new content for 2021, and we're going to take a look at all of the game shows and contest shows that have premiered just in this first week of the year. There's been a lot of them, and, you know, it makes sense because A, they're cheap to produce, and B, a lot of scripted shows are still on hold for the coronavirus, which is, ravaging Los Angeles right now. So a lot of shows that even had started back in production in the fall have ceased again. So it makes total sense. And, look, they get pretty good ratings too. So nothing to shake a stick out there. Before we get to the week in game shows here, I do want to remind you that if you are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button below and hit the little bell next to it so you can get all the notifications when I put new videos up. And comment as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of these shows. Before we get to the reviews, we do have a little bit of news for you. Not too much because, again, it's New Year's week and things are still, for the most part, kind of shut down in Hollywood. But a couple of programming notes to talk about. First of all, let's talk ratings. So because of the horrendous news on Wednesday about the Capitol building and the insurrection, cable news channels are really skipping up, which is great to see. It's great to see so many people were glued to their televisions and invested in what was going on, because I sure was. I was watching ABC News Live on Hulu because I don't have cable anymore, but they have a live free news feed there on Hulu. So CNN had its most watched day ever. Okay, and that's over a 40-year history. It averaged 5.22 million viewers for the whole 24-hour period, which is crazy because that includes like the overnight and everything. But in primetime and in afternoon slots, in 4-hour blocks, 2:30 to 6:30, 6:30 to 10:30, it got almost 9 million viewers in each of those slots. Now, of course, obviously a lot of them are the same viewers probably that just left it on. But yeah, so pretty impressive. They already broke one of their records at the election, and I think that's great that a lot of people are turning to the news. And CNN seems like a decent output for what was going on Wednesday, because if you turn on Fox News, obviously they may be telling a different story or spinning things a little bit, which they were, as far as I could see online. But they also still had their best ratings since the election, so that makes sense too. But yeah, so news was up all around, including NBC News and ABC News. In fact, CNN's primetime broadcast led every single channel. And that includes, The Masked Dancer on Fox, that includes Young Sheldon on CBS, and that includes the news on ABC and NBC. So, very, very impressive. So I was glad to see, people really being engaged with this truly horrific story. So on to a couple of lighter things, some programming notes for actors and actresses, 2 actresses in this case, joining or leaving shows. In casting news, we've got Lauren Graham leaving Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist on NBC, and this is, through no fault of her own. They have left the door open for her to come back literally anytime. But what happened was she has a contract with Disney Plus to head up the new Mighty Ducks reboot. And that contract states that will be her first priority. So because of all the COVID shuffling, she just does not really have time to do both. She had, scheduled out a block of time to do Zoe, block of time to do Mighty Ducks, but everything being pushed around, Mighty Ducks gets first. So she will be leaving Zoe's for now. I don't know if she's in the second season at all. I did not see the premiere or not, but maybe this announcement is coming because she wasn't in the premiere, and people are like, "Where's Lauren Graham? What happened?" So that is what happened. And what's funny is I never actually thought about people being contracted in that way. Anytime you see somebody on multiple shows, it would make sense, right? That their contract would stipulate, okay, this show is going to get first priority above everything else. And the first person I can think of, like in my life, that was a big star that was on two shows at once was Bob Saget. Was on Full House at the same time he was on America's Funniest Home Videos, and I guess they were both ABC productions, so I'm sure they would have probably worked around a little bit, but his Full House contract probably states that that has to be his first priority. I don't know, but I would assume so. I can't imagine that's a new thing, but it's just something I never thought about, because you see people pop up on multiple shows all the time, whether it's, they host, like Steve Harvey, for example. He hosts Family Feud, but then he also for a while had his talk show in the daytime, and then he also did Little Big Shots. He probably had a contract with Family Feud that said, this is your number one commitment above everything else. I don't know. But so I thought that was interesting to see about Lauren Graham. And then Catherine Zeta-Jones is going to be joining the cast of Prodigal Son in Season 2. She will be a foil for the Michael Sheen character. I stopped watching this show after the first few episodes. In fact, I gave it kind of a not great review here on my news and reviews, but I'd only seen the pilot. I gave it, I think, a C or C minus. I was like, all right, people are talking about the show. I'm going to go back and rewatch it. I watched the first 2 episodes. I watched the pilot over, and then I watched the second one, and I still just was like, I don't think this is that good. But whatever, people do seem to like it, and I do like Catherine Zeta-Jones. It won't bring me back to the show, but for you fans of hers and for fans of Prodigal Son, well, you can enjoy her on that show. All right, so that's really it for the news. Let's get to the reviews, and I think they'll be pretty quick this week, because game shows, there usually isn't too much to talk about, but of course, things that we want to think about here are, the host and their abilities, the game dynamics, and if there's, judges or a panel, how they focus in as well. So most of these are actually reboots, so there isn't a ton to talk about, because I think a lot of us sort of know the dynamics of most of the shows. But we're going to start with the ABC Thursday night lineup, which is 3 hours of game shows, which I watched all of them live. I am a game show fan, and I just wanted to see what was going on with these shows. So the first one is Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. That was at 8 o'clock, and it's going to continue for Thursdays on ABC for several weeks. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It is Wheel of Fortune, the same exact game that it's been for 35, 38, whatever years. Pat Sajak and Vanna White are the hosts and the presenters, and it's celebrity contestants instead of Joe Schmo contestants. That's it. So the first episode had on Leslie Jones, Chandra Wilson from Grey's Anatomy, and pro skater Tony Hawk. Those were the celebrities. And of course, look, Chandra has a great ABC show on. Leslie Jones has Supermarket Sweep on ABC as well. Tony Hawk was just there, I guess. But obviously they're going to be drawing probably from a lot of their stable of performers over on ABC. But look, I've watched Wheel of Fortune, almost my whole life. Like, it came on probably when I was like 2 or 3, and then has been on ever since. But the game dynamic itself has changed very little. It's a lot like Jeopardy. It's basically the same show it was 30, 40 years ago. You spin the wheel, you guess a letter, it's either there or it's not, and then you move on. The only things they've really changed, the prize money on the wheel is higher, and Vanna just lights up the letters, or the letters. Yeah, the letters. I almost said the numbers. Vanna lights up the big, blocks of letters instead of turning them like she actually used to turn them. Now she just hits a button and they go. But other than that, yeah, they changed the dynamic when I was a kid, where they would spend their money in the Wheel of Fortune gift shop, the horrible rattan chair and like all of that. Now they actually just get the money. But in like 30 years, it hasn't really changed. Sometimes there's a new category type that pops up. Like, for example, on this episode, they had 80s lyrics as a 80s song lyrics as a category. But, still your classes, their phrase, people, things, occupation, whatever. There's not much to say about this show. I mean, it is a classic. If we're talking about the greatest game shows of all time, Wheel of Fortune has to be in the conversation. You know, but the celebrity version has not changed anything at all. It's the same show. Which you look, they're sort of at a catch-22 because, of course, they have to keep the show basically the same, or people are going to be like, "Oh, why'd you change it?" But because it's the same, I can't give it an extraordinarily high grade because there's just adding absolutely nothing new to the mix. Yes, the celebrities are more chatty because we know them and they're talking to Vanna a little bit, and so Vanna for once is talking back from the letters that we don't see very often. And they also have these like tumbler things that they like put on the notch of the wheel to spin it. And I don't know if that was added since COVID or not. I haven't watched Wheel of Fortune in over a year. So but I feel like the last time I watched Wheel of Fortune, they still spun it with their hand. But anyway, so that's a little bit of a difference. That's more of a COVID difference, I think, than a celebrity Wheel of Fortune difference. And I know they use them on the regular show because Pat mentions that on the regular version they just have white ones, but since it's celebrity Wheel of Fortune, they're using gold ones today. So, look, Pat is a pro. Vanna is a pro. You know, everybody's great on the show. It's fun to play. It's America's game, as they call it. But Celebrity Wheel of Fortune adds nothing new to the mix. So I teeter here on a B or a B plus. I guess I'll give it a B plus because obviously they're not futzing with the main game at all. It's the same show. Because of that, I can't grade it in the A level. Like the original Wheel of Fortune would be an A. If we're talking, grading the concept of the game and all of that, it's one of the best. We know that, but they just didn't do anything different with it. But it is enjoyable to see the celebrities. It's always Celebrity Family Feud's the same way. It's Steve Harvey. It's two teams of families, but the head is a celebrity. That's it. So all right, let's move on to the 9 o'clock show on the ABC Thursday schedule, and that is The Chase. Now, this is a remake of originally it was a British show, and then it came to the U.S. I want to say maybe 2017 on the Game Show Network, and it is a show that I love. It is a great show for trivia buffs. It's maybe not as fast-paced as Jeopardy, but the game dynamics here are brilliant. It's a team of 3 civilians who are facing off against one, kind of trivia genius, right? In the original UK version and in the US version, it was Mark Labette, who they called the Beast. Here they call him the Chaser. But this version is the 3 greatest of all time players from Jeopardy, and each episode they will be going against only one of them, but the other 2 will be backstage sort of making little pithy comments along the way. So this first episode was Ken Jennings, which makes sense for that to be the first one because he will be taking over Jeopardy in the interim of finding an Alex replacement. But you've got James Holzhauer and Brad Rutter, of course, as well. So they will rotate people who will be the chaser each week. But you have 3 civilian people who are basically trying to go head-to-head with the chaser in various contests. In one, they have 1 minute to do as many questions as they can, just one by one individually. And then whatever they bank, $25,000 for each correct answer, whatever they bank goes up on the board, and the chaser will have to try and match their answers to beat them down to the bank. So basically, in the example here, $75,000 goes on the board. The Beast can say, okay, well, you can get 1 step closer to the bank and I'll give you, $35,000, or you can go 1 step closer to me and get you less wiggle room, because if I get more right answers than you're going to be out of the show. I'll give you, $200,000 or whatever. And so they have to decide. And then whatever they bank, if they bank it, goes in a pot for all 3 of the contestants, or whoever is still remaining. In the first episode, we saw 2 remaining from the original 3. And there you go. The host here this time around is Samantha? Sarah Haynes. I was thinking Samantha Guthrie for a second, but it's Sarah Haynes, and who I'm vaguely familiar with. I know the name, but the original on GSN had Brooke Burns, and I have to say, when I found out she wasn't going to be doing it, I was a little bit kind of upset. I was like, Brooke Burns is still actively working, and I loved her on that show. She was a great host. Of course, she hosted Dog Eat Dog before that on NBC. So what's the deal? Where's Brooke? But honestly, I went in with an open mind, gave Sarah a shot. Sarah is a very, very competent host. She has a good kind of rapport with Ken, good rapport with the contestants, and she seems to be in her element here. Now here's another one that they didn't drastically change from the GSN version, or I guess the UK version either, because as far as I know, the GSN version was almost a carbon copy. But I do like the little touch they put on that the other two greatest of all time contestants are in the back room, sort of, watching and making little comments. Like Ken gets a BTS question wrong, and so James is like, "Oh, he's so old," just sort of jabbing at each other a little bit, or maybe discussing something with the question. And it's sparse. They don't throw to them too often, but it's enough that you get a nice little taste, and you're like, okay, now I'm waiting for next week when James will be on or Brad will be on. So I like that. And the dynamics of the game themselves, once you get to the final, whoever is left on the contestants row has to answer as many questions as they can in, I forget, I think it's 2 minutes or something, and then Ken will have a different set of questions, and he'll basically try to chase them down, to get those right. But every time he gets one wrong, the clock stops, and the contestants have a chance to get it right and push the chaser back one. I know it sounds a little complicated, but I didn't have Sarah Haynes' script in front of me to tell you exactly how it's played, but that's the basics of it. It's a great trivia game, and I do like this version. I do kind of miss Brooke, I'm not going to lie, and I kind of miss Mark as well. I think Mark Labette was a really good sort of foe, but what's interesting is we didn't know him at all. We know these guys pretty well. We know their personalities. If we've watched Jeopardy at all or seen interviews with them, we know them, and I think that actually helps the game a little bit. So I'm going to leave the new version of The Chase with an A-. Next at 10 on ABC Thursdays, it's The Hustler. Now, this is the one I was probably most looking forward to because, A, it's, a new one, and B, I love personally playing games with secret identities. I play quite a few with some people. If I haven't been able to since COVID because we haven't had big enough groups, but there's games like Avalon. There's a game I have called Secret Hitler that's a lot of fun, where one of you is Hitler and one of you is Hitler's minion, and then 4 people are innocent and they're trying to find Hitler, basically assassinate him. And there's a lot. Mafia is a classic, sort of school game that you can play, where you don't need any cards or anything. And so this version, it's hosted by Craig Ferguson, and essentially there's 5 contestants. One of them is the hustler. They're given all of the answers ahead of time, and they have to sort of dwindle down who the group has to figure out by the end who they think is the hustler. So each question is geared specifically to a tidbit about the hustler. So, for example, the hustler has never been on social media, and then the question is, something about, I forget what the actual question they asked was, but it was something about like Twitter or Facebook or something. So the question would be related to the little factoid, but that factoid sort of gives you a little insight into, okay, who do I think here, might fit that qualification. So yeah, there's a little bit of like selective, whatever. And maybe we use the knowledge we have about, maybe a certain group of people. Oh, you're from the South. Okay, well, maybe this might apply to you. But hustler could also be lying about who they are entirely. They don't have to tell you the truth about where they're from, what they do for a living, and all of that. I think these games are a lot of fun to play with my friends, so I was hoping this game would be fun as well. And at first, I wasn't quite sure, because the first episode I saw, which was the one on Thursday, which was technically the second episode because they aired a preview, which I then watched after. So the first episode, the person I initially thought it was got voted off pretty early. The hustler votes off 2 people in secret, so it's down to just 3 by the end. And essentially the 2 non-hustlers have to ID the hustler correctly, and then they will split the prize money, whatever that is. Each question is worth $10,000, so the pot will be different every episode. And if they can't, if even one of them picks the wrong person, then the hustler wins the whole thing. So in the first one, I thought, okay, I think this person's the hustler. They got voted off fairly early, so I'm like, all right, well, now I got to think of a new strategy. And then I thought I had it, and then I didn't. And so then I watched the premiere episode, which aired a few days earlier, and I called the hustler immediately, right from the start. Now, I did waver a few times. I was like, okay, well, now maybe I'm thinking this or that. But sure enough, I was right in my instinct there. So this game is a lot of instinct, but what's interesting about the show versus like playing it with your friends is, you know, you have access to every single thing at the table when you're playing with your friends. You can pick up on your friends' cues, you can pick up on your friends', you know, ticks or whatever, and you know your friend. So it's easier to kind of read them. Here, you don't know any of these people. They don't know each other. So I was thinking, okay, well, this is going to be manipulated by the producers, the cameraman. They will sort of frame things in such a way that, all right, well, it's, you know, definitely not this person. Oh, it's got to be this person. To me, I was like, well, they're really focusing in on this one person, so that means it can't be them. And I was correct on that. But what I found interesting was I spoke with 5 different people who watched either of the 2 episodes or both episodes. And almost everybody had a different sort of take on who they thought the hustler was. And that told me that the producers are actually doing an excellent job, because everybody is finding different things in this show to kind of grapple onto. There is no obvious solution. Not that I necessarily thought there was, but I just thought it would be easier to manipulate than, you know, something where you're playing with your friends. So I was very impressed by that, and it's certainly enough for me to give this a high grade. I also think Craig Ferguson is a great host. You know, look, he's always been kind of funny. He keeps asking people, "Are you the hustler?" You know, or some clue will come up, and then he'll ask one specific person like a follow-up. Oh, now, what is that dish that they talked about in the clue? You know, just to see if he can break anybody. And of course he can't. You know, but it's all kind of fun. And then while they're deciding on the answer to the trivia question, he's over like, you know, dusting a book or something in the back. It's sort of like a, I don't know what you call it, like a parlor theme. You know, in like in Clue or whatever. But so I think it's an all-around pretty solid show. You know, look, the concept is not completely new, I guess. There's been obviously board games with this theme and such for decades, but I've never seen a game show quite like this, where it's every episode is different people. We've seen a few along the, like The Mole is something I'm reminded of from 20 years ago with Anderson Cooper, but that was like a season-long Who's the Mole. This is each episode we're going to be introduced to new people, so it's a standalone show, which I think is exactly what people need in their game shows these days, because, you know, people are on the go. I think it's harder a little bit to follow a whole group of people throughout 12, 13 episodes, whatever. So this I thought was just very, very well done. I leave The Hustler with an A-. So up next, we're going to go to Fox and Name That Tune. This is going to be part of their Wednesday lineup with The Masked Dancer currently, but then The Masked Singer will return, of course, in March. And this will sort of rotate back and forth with Beat Shazam, the Jamie Foxx show that's been on a few years. And I tried to find an episode of Beat Shazam to kind of compare it to the dynamics of Name That Tune, which is the show I'm going to be talking about. And I couldn't. It's not on Hulu anymore. I couldn't find any online. So I read a description of it, and it does seem a bit different because you're playing in teams on Beat Shazam, and you're playing against, technically, the Shazam app. You're not playing against the other teams, as far as I could tell from the dynamics. So this is Name That Tune. It's originally from the 50s on radio and television a couple years later. The most recent version, and the version I am most familiar with, is from 1984 with Jim Lang as the host. And the concept here is actually very similar to that show, that Name That Tune. Now, it's gone through a few different iterations. I was reading on Wikipedia all the different kinds of games and stuff that they would play along the years. But this is very similar to that original show. What they've done here is they play 2 full episodes because it's an hour-long show, which is, ABC's done that with a lot of their nighttime game shows. They do it with Celebrity Wheel of Fortune. They play 2 full games with the same celebrities, actually. Match Game will do the same. They'll have different contestants, but the same 6 celebrities for both half hours. They do it with Card Sharks. So, yeah, all the nighttime ABC shows are an hour long, but sometimes it's a full hour show. Like The Chase is an hour-long show where there's 1 game, but Wheel of Fortune is 2 episodes in one. Name That Tune is the same. So your host this time around is Jane Krakowski, who has a beautiful singing voice. We've heard it since the Ally McBeal days. And then her music director, her band leader, so to speak, is good old Randy Jackson from American Idol. He's on the piano, and he has, sort of a band behind him. And the concept is fairly simple. You're just basically guessing songs based on some clues, based on some notes, etc. And there you go. And then the final, you have 30 seconds to name 7 songs. And each one is worth $1,000. Or no, each one is worth $10,000. But if you get all 7, they bump you up to $100,000. So the prize money is solid on this show. I mean, even if you only get 2 of those final 7, you're walking away with $20,000. Like that's very solid. So good on them for really giving us some good prize money here. But Jane Krakowski, no surprise, is a great host. She's a lot of fun, and she's a regular panelist on the Match Game, so we see her personality all the time. But I've watched just about every show she's been in. I know she's done Broadway stuff as well. But Ally McBeal, 30 Rock, Kimmy Schmidt. I'm a Jane fan, and I've always liked Randy Jackson too. He's a little bit silly, with the whole dog comments and whatever. But what's interesting is he has the same exact inflection and reactions that he did on American Idol. Like if somebody's bidding, I know this song in one note, he'll give them like a okay, dog, whatever. And it's like, it's the exact same as he used to do on American Idol, which for me was actually kind of comforting. Okay, so here's my negatives about the show, because there are some. Number one of the main segments of this show that always has been, as far as I know, is the bid a note section. And what you're doing is you're bidding against your opponent how many notes you can figure out this song in. I can get this song in 8 notes. Then it goes back to the other row. I can get it in 6 notes. Goes back to you, whatever. And then eventually somebody has to say, name that tune. So my issue with this is not that. That's a great concept. I really like it. They actually employ it on a current game show with Meredith Vieira called 25 Words or Less. It's fine. Bid a note, great. However, 2 things I find are wrong with this particular version. Number 1, the audience oohs every time somebody bids down 1 note. Like somebody starts at 8 notes and then it goes to the other person. I can get it in 7 notes. Whoa! Everybody's like freaking out. It's like, all right, dude, it's not that serious. Like if they open their bid at 3 notes, then you can maybe ooh and ah. But it's like, so that was just annoying. It was like every single time. And then number 2, they give clues, though, to the song. So, obviously, you need some sort of clue or you don't know what to bid on, right? But the clues, I thought, were very obvious. Almost every single one, I could have just done I can get it in 1 note, and then, because that's the lowest you can bid. Like, for example, one of them was, you might tell your taxi driver this on a Sunday. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, what do you do on Sunday? You go to church. What do you tell your taxi driver? Oh, go there. Take me to church. Okay, well, that was easy. It's just very, easy to me. And look, I'm a music fan. This is my kind of show. They actually had a revival that they were discussing in the mid-2000s with Donny Osmond as host, and I was really excited. I was going to try out for it, but then it never happened. They also tried to revive this about 3 years ago with Elizabeth Banks, who's now the Press Your Luck host over on ABC, but they tried it with her, obviously after the Pitch Perfect stuff blew up, and that didn't go anywhere either. So I am glad to see the show back, but there's, that definitely is an issue. Another issue I have with it is that the producers of this show make the mistake of overdubbing some of what Jane says, so the audio is different. I don't know if you've ever noticed this in game shows or reality shows. It actually used to be the worst with Donald Trump when he hosted The Apprentice, because I guess he flubbed so many lines, or he just said jackass things that they didn't want to put on the show. that they would dub his lines over in a sound booth or whatever, but the audio would just never match up to the live version. And so ever since then, I've sort of like noticed it along the way in different shows. And mostly it's on these types of more contest type shows, but Regis started, they started doing it to Regis at the end of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So I've picked up on it, and they do it to Jane here, and to me, it's just a little bit of a producer error or whatever. Like, I think there's a way to make it sound seamless. Like, I didn't notice it on Sarah Haynes at all in The Chase, but I imagine she probably did it, And sometimes it's for game dynamics, the host might not know the exact amount that they're owed or something. They do it the worst currently in, like, The Wall and the one with Dax Shepard, Spin the Wheel, because I think it's like they have to do fast math or something in their head about, if you get this on the wall, then you'll get this, or you'll have this much money. And I don't know if maybe there's not somebody in their earpiece saying what the price is or what, but like to me it's just very obvious when they overdub whatever the host is saying, so they have that here too. So those are the negatives. One other positive I will give this show is they found a way to do it in Corona times and make it make sense. Have a full audience, and the way they're doing that is they're filming it not here, not in the U.S., because of course we're going crazy with COVID. They're filming it in Australia, and the contestants are American expatriates that live now in Australia. And so once I learned this halfway through the first episode, in the second episode, or the second half, I should say, of the first hour, I paid attention to like what the people said about like their introductions and stuff, and none of them mentioned where they live currently. They just said, I'm originally from here and I do this for a living, and that's it. And I think that's a very clever way to do it, because I sure didn't know. Without looking it up, I wouldn't know. Now, The Hustler I looked up was actually filmed before COVID. So that was filmed a while ago. Wheel of Fortune has been working through COVID for 6 months now, so they have that down. And The Chase is also post-COVID, but everybody's so spread out because there's only 3 contestants, and then, the Chase are high up on the pedestal there, and then the hosts somewhere in between. That's easy. There's only 5 people. And there may be a studio audience for The Chase. I don't know, but I don't think there is. They may have added in sound effects, which that I'm fine with, especially during COVID. But so this thing does have a live audience. I applaud that. However, I hate when the audience oohs at everything. So this one, it's fun. It's a fun show, but for me, certainly too easy. And I did not like the oohing of the audience. So I name that tune with a B-. All right, so finally we have on TBS The Go Big Show. This is a talent competition show with 4 panelists and hosted by Bert Kreischer, a classic, certainly comedian, but I'm trying to think of like the specific word. He's not like a shock comedian, but he's kind of wild, like a wild comedian. He does a lot of shows with his shirt off, and he tells us crazy stories of drunken days and whatever, and he's sort of known for his outrageousness. I guess that was what you could call him, an outrageous comedian, but not because of the things he says necessarily, just because of his lifestyle and sort of this whole thing that he's perpetuated about himself. So he's a good choice for host of this show. And here's, speaking of Corona stipulations, they filmed this in Corona times, but with no indoor audience. The audience is all outside in their vehicles. And they honk their horns for applause and stuff like that. And Bert Kreischer has been doing stand-up shows all over the country during COVID with this sort of, they're called outdoor, is it called outdoor concerts? I don't know. But anyway, or drive-in concerts, that's what it's called. It's called a drive-in concert. And so he's done more of these, I think, than anybody in 2020. He was the highest grossing comedian in 2020 because of these shows. And so, it makes even more sense then for him to host this show, because he's employed that whole, car scene before. So the only people inside the studio are the contestants, Bert, and then the 4 panelists, which are Rosario Dawson, Snoop Dogg, Jennifer Nettles of the, what's that band called? She sings Who Says You Can't Go Home with Bon Jovi. Oh man, I am so stupid. I can't think of the name of Jennifer Nettles' darn band. Um, Now that is going to bother me for sure. But anyway, and then the other one is Cody Rhodes, who I was unfamiliar with, but he is a WWE guy, and I guess he acts a little bit too. All right, I got to look up Jennifer Nettles here for a second, because that's going to bug me. Sugarland. Okay, there you go. Thank you, IMDb. But anyway, so this is a talent contest, but it's all about going big. That's called the Go Big Show. It basically takes all of the America's Got Talent type competitors and takes out all the dancing, all the singing, all the stand-up comedy. It's all the more, I don't want to say big again, but just sort of the more variety acts, you know. So here you have two facing off against each other, and one of them will move into the semifinals. And so you've got, you know, a circus freak act. You've got an archer that uses her feet to shoot the arrows. You've got a motorcycle daredevil. You've got a big time magician. And when I say big time, I mean like he's not doing sleight of hand tricks with cards. You know, he's doing, you know, big acts. And so I have several problems with this show, actually. Number one is the scoring dynamic. So like I said, each pair will go against each other, and one of them will go to the semifinals. Okay, well, so the judges all supposedly have, like, you know, levers on their seats or whatever. They pull the lever, and the scale goes from 1 to 100. And it's one of those huge, like, I don't know, like where you'd see at a carnival, where you hit it with a mallet and it goes up to 100. It's like one of those things. But it's huge on the stage because it's the Go Big Show. So they do it, and like the first two acts both got like in the 90s, and it's just like, okay, what are we doing here? Like, why even have it if you're just going to put everybody up to the 90s? So then the second pair, they both got 95s, which, I mean, they were okay, but like, let's not get carried away here. If 100 is the greatest act you could see on this show, these are not 95s, I don't think. You know, I've seen definitely some more interesting things on America's Got Talent. So, one thing that I was really annoyed by, so they both got 95s. The judges refused to, you know, pick a winner. So Bert literally flipped a coin to see who was going to the semifinals. Like, that is the stupidest concept for a talent competition, you know, that I've ever seen. And then the other part of it that I don't like is the act I hate the most on America's Got Talent is the quote freak show acts, and that's, you know, they're self-naming themselves that. I that's not my term, but like, you know, circus sideshows, freak shows, that kind of thing. Like the one guy, I like, it makes me cringe thinking about it. He put hooks into his like eyes, his like droopy eye sockets, and lifted Rosario Dawson, you know, with the hooks. Like he wrapped her in like the chains or whatever. Like, that to me, it like makes me want to vomit. Like, it's so gross. And the panel, of course, like Snoop Dogg's like so into it, you know, and the WWE dude's into it. Jennifer Nettles even is into it, which is surprising. On America's Got Talent, that's my least favorite kind of act. The gross acts, I just can't do. And this is a lot of, I think what we're going to see here on the Go Big Show is these gross acts. Now, some of them, you know, the first pairing we had, like a BMX stunt guy or whatever, and then the second act paired with her was this circus sideshow act, but not a freak show. She, like, balanced on this huge rubber ball, and then she, like, juggled or you know, had like the hula hoop with a flame, you know, whatever. But it was like a danger act, but it wasn't a freak act. I don't mind danger, but the gross out acts, it's so disgusting. Like, if the panel has to look away, I don't understand why the panel ever wants to see any of these acts again if they have to look away the whole time anyway. So I did not care for that. So yeah, the scoring just makes no sense. Also, in the whole hour then, we only see 6 acts. In an hour of America's Got Talent, you can see 10, 12, you know, I mean, like, there's a lot more fluff in this than a show like that. And look, I know I'm comparing it to AGT a lot, but that's I mean, that's really what this is. There's 4 panelists. They don't have X buzzers, but like there's 4 panelists, and we're seeing a bunch of different variety acts. So it's like AGT, but without the music and without the dancers and the comedians. So I do think Bert Kreischer's a good host. I think he's a good fit for this. But the whole coin toss thing was just moronic. I mean, come on. Maybe next time on American Idol they should decide that way. Just flip a friggin' coin. Like, it just makes no sense. And because the scoring makes no sense. You know, they both those acts should not have even gotten 95s. So there should have been no, tie anyway. So I leave the Go Big show with a C-. Definitely some interesting things about it, but not something, certainly because of the gross out acts, not something I would ever watch again. Also, the pot jokes with Snoop Dogg, I mean, they're 25 years old now, like he went up at the top of the thing with the BMX biker to see like how high it was, and Snoop on the way up, he's like, oh, I never been this high, whatever. And it's like, all right, we get it, you're a pot smoker. It's fine, but like, come on. So yeah, I think a C+ is perfectly appropriate for the Go Big show. All right, well, that's it. I will have another TV news and reviews actually within the next probably 4 or 5 days, because this was the game show one. We have a bunch of scripted shows that have come out too. Call Me Kat, Mr. Mayor. There's one on CBS All Access. I think it might be called Coyote. The Fox animated series The Great North. There's a lot of new scripted shows out too for the start of the year. So I wanted to get the game shows out of the way first, and in a few days we'll do the scripted shows. But yes, it's great chatting with you guys. Please subscribe below, comment. Did you see The Hustler? Did you guess The Hustler? Let me know. I'd be very, very interested in that. But we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.